Welcome to Unearthly. Skinwalkers are evil shamans from the Navajo tribe. Their most distinctive power is their ability to actually shapeshift into an animal, usually a coyote. By doing dark, forbidden rituals and donning the animal's skin, the attributes of the animal, such as agility and speed, are transferred to the evil shaman, hence the name Skinwalker. For skinwalkers, the supernatural powers gained as a result of doing evil are far more important to them than their own loved ones. In order to become a skinwalker, the evil shaman must kill someone they love, like their own mother or sibling. They are willing to kill even newborn babies, as this helps them gain the highest supernatural powers. For example, they gain the power to hurl curses that can come true. All these superhuman abilities make the skinwalker almost impossible to catch and kill. Here are some real life encounters that people have had with skinwalkers. Growing up, I lived in northeastern Arizona, just about 5 miles south of the Navajo reservation in Winslow. Being that close to the reservation, or the res as we called it, skinwalkers were a huge topic of conversation for us locals, and we took them very seriously. This incident took place when I was around 16. My brother had a girlfriend who lived in a small community located south of Winslow called Starlight Pines. One afternoon, we decided to go visit her. On the way to her house, we noticed a Navajo man. He's casually dressed in a flannel shirt and jeans. He's simply standing on the side of the road, which is very strange because the res was to the north of town, pretty far off, and nobody comes here on foot. It's only desert and trees all around, no shops, no houses here in this remote area. He's more than 60 miles away from the nearest town and doesn't seem to have a car or any other vehicle nearby. We get to my brother's girlfriend's house, and after several hours, it's time to return home. It's 12 a.m. We hop into his truck, a Chevy S10, and drive back the way we came. Sometime later, we see the Navajo dude is still there in the exact place we'd seen him hours earlier. I tell my brother that dude is crazy, standing out there all day and into the night. Right as we pass him, we hear a loud bang on the back of the truck. At first, I think we hit an animal, but I didn't feel the car running over something. My brother is starting to slow down, thinking there may be something wrong with the truck. I turn around to look behind us. In the brake lights, I see that man crouching with his hands on the ground chasing us. We are going 55 to 60 and my brother is slowing down to stop. The guy is on the road just feet behind us. I yell to my brother, "Don't stop! Go faster! Speed up!" He zooms the car ahead. But that guy is chasing us even as we speed up, 85 miles an hour. We cover an entire mile and he's still behind us. I ask my brother, what if we don't make it back to town? 10 minutes go by and he's still hot on our heels. I am losing hope of ever getting back home. A few minutes later, I look back and he's gone. We reach home and tell our parents. Next morning, I remember the loud bang we heard just before getting chased. I go out and I look at my brother's truck, thinking about the night before. Just near the right tail light, I find a handprint smeared in the dust. I have never taken that route again. An earlier encounter occurred when I was around 13. As I mentioned before, we lived near the res. It was a small desert town with not much to entertain your average bored teenager. So, occasionally at midnight, we kids would walk around the neighborhood and engage in silly, suspicious behavior just to get the cops called on us. The cops would come chasing us around, and we would run down the alleyways and hop into random people's backyards to hide. Overall, it was harmless hide and seek with the cops, fun times. In those days, it was pretty common to see an intoxicated Navajo or Hopi person in these alleys. So, it was no big deal to see a Navajo man in the alley behind my house one night as me and my two friends were running away from a police car. We see the Navajo man standing in our way, run around him, and jump into the nearest building to hide. We wait for the cops to pass us and hop back out hardly 3 minutes later. The Navajo man was gone. In his place was a coyote sitting there just looking at us. We walked right next to it, but it didn't even budge. Coyotes are wild animals that avoid people at all costs. They run away if they see a person approaching them, even from 30 feet away. But this bugger held his ground and calmly sat and watched us run past him. And not even 3 minutes had passed from the time we saw the Navajo man hid from the cops and came out. We freaked out and didn't go out at night for weeks after this incident. The church I grew up in supported several missionaries to the Navajo reservation in northeast Arizona. They ran a couple of Baptist churches there. We often visited to help build houses, schools, etc. One such trip was when I was around 13 years old. I remember that it was a long, desolate, moonlit road. Only open desert for miles and miles around, not a single building or house in sight. I was dozing off in the front passenger seat of the 15-seater church van. The trip leader, John, a practical, no-nonsense Vietnam vet, was driving. I was startled awake to find every hair on my arms standing on end when I heard John saying, non-stop, "Lord Jesus, protect us! Lord Jesus, protect us!" His face lit only by the panel lights, he was glaring straight ahead, his hands tightly gripping the steering wheel. The speedometer read 100 miles per hour. Why was he speeding up so much on an empty road in the middle of nowhere? Why was he praying aloud so late at night? I looked out my window, and in the moonlight, I see a gaunt, naked man running on all fours alongside our van. The man was easily keeping pace with our van, 100 miles per hour. "Skinwalkers," John cried out. "Just pray." You better believe I prayed. That thing ran next to our van for around 5 more minutes, then it slowed down and disappeared into the vast desert. My sister and I were on our way to visit our aunt in Syracuse, Utah, one night at around 11:30. As we passed a ranch in the middle of the desert, I got this horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. A sense of impending doom. I yelled out, "Turn the car around, now!" I felt that something terrible was going to happen and we needed to get out of there quickly. Something smelled rotten, like a dead animal. My sister pulled over to the side of the road. From the driver's side, we noticed a deer, except it's standing upright on its 2 feet. Before we could even react, it leaped onto the hood of our car. Moments later, it jumped off. It wasn't entirely a deer because on its lower half, it had on some clothes, just like a person would wear. We weren't sticking around to find out more. We sped away from there as fast as we could. The next morning, we discovered 2 large dents in the hood of the car. How often do deer jump onto the hoods of cars? How many deer are in the Utah desert anyway? A few days later, we met my uncle, a deeply spiritual Navajo man, and he told us it was a skinwalker and that we were now marked for death. I'm not sure how much I believed it, but he was pretty adamant. It's been about 5 years since it happened, and my uncle has since passed. I don't believe I'm marked for death, as he said, but there have been some incidents recently that have left me wondering. Like one night, when my dog got back into the kitchen from the yard outside, I had a strong feeling that something bad was going to happen and I needed to lock the door right away. I locked it and was walking away when the doorknob started to twist, turn, and shake violently like someone was desperate to get inside. My dog started clinging to me, shivering like a leaf and whimpering. He'd never acted like this. As soon as the doorknob stopped turning, I heard heavy, thundering footsteps. But they were coming from inside my house. Loud footsteps running down the hall, right towards me. I stayed still, scared out of my wits, and staring at the emptiness as the footsteps ran right in front of me. I could hear the sound of the back door being opened and then slammed shut, but I could see no one. Months later, my apartment was also broken into, but only my hairbrush was stolen. Not a single other thing was missing. None of my husband's belongings were touched either. Skinwalkers are known to collect a person's things, especially the hair or nails of a person, in order to perform evil rituals against a person. As for my sister, she just doesn't like to talk about it. A couple of years after the first incident, I tried asking her about it, but she quickly changed the subject. That skinwalker sighting was actually one of the turning points in our relationship. We don't talk much anymore, I'm sad to say. My friend served his mission on the Navajo reservation. This was early 1980s, before the internet and before anyone had heard the term skinwalker. He was once driving with his friend on the res late at night. They soon noticed that a coyote was pursuing their vehicle. The animal seemed to keep up with them no matter how fast they drove. That's when they realized this was no ordinary coyote. He slowed down the car to avoid a bump on the road. That's when the coyote leaped onto the roof of their car. From there, it peered at them through the windshield. But now, it was not a coyote peering at them, but a human face. A coyote with a human face. My friend almost swerved off the road upon seeing this. They could feel pure evil radiating from it. My friend was new to the res and no one had prepared him for Navajo witches that could shapeshift into animals. A few seconds later, the creature jumped off the car and both men lived to tell their tale. In 1998, I was serving in the Mormon Mission office in Arizona. One day, I received a frantic call from a missionary whom I knew. He had been out chopping wood for an elderly Navajo couple and had asked them about skinwalkers. When he got back to his mobile home, there was a coyote hanging around in the backyard. Coyotes are shy, reclusive animals which always stay away from humans. He went into the house and moments later, a man started pounding on the door. How did the stranger get there? The mobile home was at the end of a dirt road next to the Mormon church. They would have heard a car coming from a long way off but didn't hear anything. There were no cars parked anywhere for miles around, as it was a desolate area. My friend was so freaked out that he didn't dare to open the door. The stranger began walking around the trailer, trying to open the windows from outside and then the doors, but luckily they were firmly locked. As my friend watched, the stranger jumped onto the roof of his trailer home, which was 10 feet high. He could now hear his footsteps loud and clear from the top of the trailer. Was he still looking for a way into the trailer? Just as suddenly, the noise stopped, and sometime later, my friend was able to venture out safely. But the entire experience freaked my friend out so much that he asked to be transferred off the res and spend the rest of his mission in cities. Pretty much every missionary I knew that served on the res had some kind of strange experience. I myself had an experience a year before the caller's encounter. I was living in Arizona, close to the Hopi and Navajo reservations. We were visiting a family near Many Farms, Arizona, and left there at about 9:30 p.m. All of the roads in that area are dirt roads. We had just pulled out of the driveway when we saw a man standing in the field on the other side of the road. He was a young Native American. Upon seeing him, I felt absolute dread. He was just standing there staring at us. A wave of unease swept over me. My friend and I both felt we had to get out of there ASAP. The roads are rough on the res, but we were used to driving fast on them. It is actually smoother the faster you go. So we took off pretty quickly. The man in the field started running next to our truck and staring into the passenger side window. I kept accelerating and the man kept pace with us. Finally, he fell out of our view. We were too scared to even look back to see what happened. The next morning, we called the main office for our mission. We told the mission president our story. He said that the same thing had happened to other missionaries earlier. He told us to try to not think about it or even talk about it with others because that could call them to us. We avoided the res at night time after that incident. So clearly, skinwalkers are feared for their wild nature. But is there anything that strikes terror in a skinwalker's heart? The answer is yes. The skinwalker's own name. A skinwalker can be killed by any Navajo shaman who knows the skinwalker's real name. Names are powerful, and for a skinwalker, it is the one thing they need to protect above all else.